The Middle Class Millionaire, The Rise of the New Rich and How They Are Changing America, by Russ Allen Prince and Louis Schiff. Narrated by Lloyd James. Copyright 2008 by Russ Allen Prince and Louis Schiff. This unabridged audiobook is published by arrangement with Russ Allen Prince, Louis Schiff, and Levine Plotkin and Menon, LLP, and was produced in the year 2008 by Tantor Media, Incorporated, which holds the copyright thereto. Chapter 1. The Influence of Affluence. In 2004, the sales department at Elite Traveler magazine asked Russ Allen Prince to conduct a marketing survey of its readership. Elite Traveler is likely the most exclusive consumer magazine in the world. The magazine is distributed primarily on private jets, and it covers subjects such as how to book your own private island. Its reader demographics, with an average household income in the seven figures, eclipse those of its nearest competitor by more than sixfold. Russ's job, in part, was to measure how much influence the buying habits of these very affluent readers exert on others around them. In the field of luxury marketing, purchasing decisions of high net worth individuals are assumed to exert a downline influence on people of the same or lesser means. Elite Traveler wanted to know if Russ could document a similar relationship between the purchasing decisions of the people who read Elite Traveler and other people who associate with them. Russ has been studying the spending and investing habits of high net worth individuals for more than 20 years. He knew that carrying out a methodologically sound survey of very wealthy individuals would be a difficult and time-consuming task. To find 203 respondents willing to answer a long series of personal questions posed by a researcher in personal interviews, Prince had to network his way through lists of financial advisors and private jet services who served as go-betweens. Most of the survey subjects either accepted a $500 payment for their cooperation or directed that sum to one of their pet charities. The survey results provided Elite Traveler with an unwelcome surprise. According to the survey, the buying decisions of very high net worth individuals, those with wealth in excess of $10 million, exert very little influence on the people around them. Except for certain celebrities, wealthy people who are influential by almost every other measure don't serve as role models when they purchase goods and services. They are not referentially influential. If they buy something for their home or office, they tend not to talk about it very much. In the case of more easily observable purchases, such as clothes, watches, and jewelry, they seldom interact with enough people on a day-to-day basis to exert any significant influence. And when it comes to providers of personal services, life coaches, personal trainers, financial advisors, the very rich can be very secretive. Express too much praise for your coach or trainer, after all, and he or she might get poached by someone else. Russ had managed to measure in a meaningful way, perhaps for the first time, the profound insularity of the very wealthy. They don't have a very big impact on the rest of us. This conclusion was not terribly helpful to Elite Traveler, but Russ found himself intrigued by one small set of details buried in the data. The sample was too small for him to draw any concrete conclusions, but it seemed to him that a handful of the least affluent in this particular sample group reported behavior patterns that set them apart from the rest. They enjoyed making their opinions known, and they actively solicited opinions from others. They talked with a lot of people each day. Here was a subset of the multimillionaire cohort who didn't act like multimillionaires. In a subsequent readership survey done for the New Yorker and Registered Rep magazines, Russ's researchers interviewed 1,417 people who declared a net worth between $1 million and $10 million, including the equity they hold in their primary residence. It was here that he discovered, as a sociological phenomenon, the middle-class millionaire. Most are baby boomers, but some were born after the boom's end in 1964. They made, rather than inherited, their money, often through technology, real estate, entrepreneurship, or a mix of all three. And while middle-class millionaires are found in just about every kind of community, they tend to congregate on the east and west coasts. Months later, Russ compared survey responses from these self-identified working millionaires with a pilot study of ordinary middle-class individuals. Here he found measurable differences in areas closely related to financial success. The attitudes and beliefs of the middle-class millionaires were significantly different from those of the broader middle class. Some behaviors were valued more highly than others, or were practiced more rigorously. Knowing what those behaviors were might help others achieve similar success. For example, middle-class millionaires worked much longer hours. They were more likely to focus on drawing financial gain from their work. They were less inclined to be discouraged by failure. Above all, Russ found that the millionaires in his middle-class sample were measurably more influential than people who had not achieved millionaire status. Middle-class millionaires are networkers by nature. They report seeking the advice of others and offering advice far more frequently than the other survey respondents. And they believe that the advice they offer is much more likely to be followed by others. In other words, as a group, middle-class millionaires aren't merely talented professionals who happen to make a lot of money. Instead, their distinctive temperament and behavioral tendencies seem to be significant factors in the achievement of their wealth. What was most interesting to Russ as a marketing researcher was how their knack for networking, for talking to people, for trading information, gives middle-class millionaires an oversized impact on the middle class's aspirations, attitudes, and spending habits. Middle-class millionaires exert that strong downline influence that Russ could not detect among the ultra-rich. They are natural apostles for whatever products and services they find most useful. Products and services that often make their way downstream over time and become available to a much broader population. Taking into account also the natural desire of middle-class people to emulate those more affluent than themselves, Russ could see how the working rich have begun to lead a transformation of middle-class life in America. From the ultra-rich to the middle-class millionaire. John Hutchins is one of the many entrepreneurs who more or less accidentally discovered the middle-class millionaire over the last 10 years. He began with a business plan designed to satisfy the needs of the ultra-wealthy. But eventually it led him to the birth of a company that depends upon a completely different clientele, one that has far more in common with the middle class than with the super-rich. Hutchins is a veteran hospital administrator who moved overseas in the late 1970s to run the then-new Al-Hada Hospital in Taif, Saudi Arabia. That job, which sometimes required him to settle disputes over which Saudi prince had the larger hospital room, also helped Hutchins familiarize himself with Europe and Asia's network of top medical specialists. In 1985, when the world-renowned Cleveland Clinic was looking for a director to open its new international center, Hutchins was picked for the position. The center represented a first for American hospitals, a unit within a hospital devoted solely to the highly profitable recruitment and care of rich and powerful overseas patients. With a staff of 100, Hutchins set about catering to the Cleveland Clinic's VIP patients and their guests from the moment they were met at the airport and whisked into waiting limousines. A sheikh from the United Arab Emirates might arrive for 2 weeks of cardiology tests and bring with him an entourage of 100 or more family members and personal attendants. Hutchins and his staff needed to tackle such logistical headaches as arranging for lavish lamb dinners, booking enough rooms at the Ritz-Carlton, and finding reliable translators. As many as 60 Royal Arab family groups and their entourages would come through town in a single summer. But as Hutchins, now 65, remembers it, only a few of these patients suffered from any ailments serious enough to require the Cleveland Clinic's high standard of care. In the Middle East, when it's 130 degrees in the summer, he says, if someone has an ingrown toenail, the whole family likes to bail out. Hutchins eventually moved to Baltimore to launch a similar program at Johns Hopkins. Under Hutchinson's direction, Johns Hopkins spent millions renovating the exclusive Marburg Pavilion, a secluded unit of 15 hospital rooms and suites designed to provide patients with all the comforts they might expect from a 5-star hotel. Each room is furnished with Chippendale guest chairs, hardwood floors, and Oriental area rugs. Hutchins contracted with the Walt Disney Company for the staff's customer service training, and the Ritz-Carlton developed the program's management protocols. Each day, staff were required to familiarize themselves with an updated log of every VIP patient's personal likes and dislikes. For all the pampering that Hutchins offered his patients at Johns Hopkins, however, he wasn't always happy about how their actual medical treatment was handled. For one thing, slotting appointments with the best doctors in certain specialties was extremely difficult. The hospital's culture seemed resistant to accommodating what he calls large volumes of difficult patients. The second issue was this. Although Johns Hopkins regarded itself as the best hospital on earth, Hutchins knew that not all of its departments were equally distinguished. When it comes to cardiac surgery, for instance, the Cleveland Clinic, which does a far greater volume of heart operations than Johns Hopkins, might be preferable. But while he was working for Johns Hopkins, Hutchins felt it wasn't his place to point out the merits of other institutions. Over time, he came to feel that his job wasn't to care about the patient or the family. It was caring about the institution. In 2001, Hutchins left Johns Hopkins to start a medical consulting business. As he pictured it, the new firm would allow him, at last, to consider his clients' well-being as his sole obligation. He wanted to build a nationwide network of hospitals and physicians, including some of the world's most sought-after medical specialists, and then refer the wealthy and powerful to them via his medical contracts from around the globe. In essence, the firm would function like an HMO for the world's super elite. A funny thing happened, though, when Hutchins sought out a financial partner for the project. One day in January 2001, he sat down with a Baltimore-area businessman and serial entrepreneur named Bruce Spector. Then aged 49, Spector had just successfully sold his third company, and now he was looking for a new challenge. As he listened to Hutchins go on about all the privileges that the super-wealthy clients of this new business would enjoy, an attentive staff monitoring each patient's medical needs, thorough executive physicals, high-tech record-keeping, expedited appointments with top specialists, he began to wonder just how rich you really needed to be to afford such care. Spector had done very well financially for himself and his family, but he had hardly achieved the level of wealth where he could afford to hire a full-time household physician, as so many of Hutchinson's international patients had. Instead, he always felt stuck with the same frustrating indignities that the healthcare system dishes out to everyone: the interminable time wasted in waiting rooms, the jarring discontinuity in care among various specialists, the hassles with insurance reimbursements. The more Spector listened, the more certain he was that the germ of Hutchinson's idea, with some modifications, would work not just for the jet set, but also for Americans like himself, people with enough disposable income to pay extra for top-quality medical care and a better experience. 7 years later, Hutchins and Spector work out of side-by-side cubicles in a downtown Baltimore office tower. Their health care advocacy company, Pinnacle Care International, has sold about 1,000 memberships, which serve approximately 3,000 members and their dependents. More than 90% are American citizens. Most are corporate executives and owners of successful privately held businesses on the East Coast. The most popular family membership plan at Pinnacle Care costs $8,000 per year, regardless of family size, and requires a one-time $7,000 setup fee. Other membership levels run the gamut from a $3,000 per year just-in-case plan, which provides Pinnacle Care's help in the event of a medical emergency, all the way up to $20,000 per year for people with life-threatening conditions such as stage 4 cancer. News about Pinnacle Care usually peg the company as an exclusive club for the rich. But $8,000 is considerably less than the $9,641 that AAA estimates car owners pay each year to operate ordinary family sedans, such as the Toyota Camry or the Chevy Impala. Pinnacle Care is not an insurance company, nor is it a healthcare provider. Instead, members pay to have their health looked after by an account representative, as if each member's medical record were a financial portfolio. A trained staff of healthcare advocates, most of whom are registered nurses and social workers, assess goals, draw up plans, monitor progress, and attend to crises. This team also assists members with diet and prescription reminders, accompanies them to medical appointments, hammers out problems with insurers, and consults with the company's staff physicians about second opinion referrals. In a sense, the advocates serve the same function within the healthcare system as financial advisors do within the financial system. 5 years ago, no such service was available at any price. Now there are Pinnacle Care members who can't imagine entering a hospital or a specialist's exam room without an advocate by their side to ask questions and look out for them. One Pinnacle Care member who sprained an ankle getting out of a Manhattan cab tells the story of calling his Pinnacle Care advocate from the street corner where he was hurt, and within 45 minutes he was being treated in the office of a Manhattan foot specialist, sparing him the experience that most out-of-towners would suffer: hours of waiting in an emergency room. Pinnacle Care claims that, thanks in part to the relationships it has developed through its board of medical advisors, the company can accomplish, in days and weeks, what it would take an individual weeks or months to do. Doctors, for the most part, are glad to clear their schedules for Pinnacle Care clients, largely because they are influenced by the perception of the affluence. An ear, nose, and throat physician told Departures magazine in November 2004, "If Pinnacle calls me about someone with a specialized ear problem, I will often squeeze that person into my schedule. The advantage for me is that it's a wealthy clientele base. My reputation would spread as they talk about the care they received from me." This audiobook examines the pivotal role of the middle-class millionaire in shaping the world we live in. The 7.6% of American households headed by what some might call the working rich. These 8.4 million households make up a new generation of millionaires who began to emerge from the middle class in the late 20th century. Overwhelmingly, these millionaire households are headed by people raised in ordinary middle-class homes. They've achieved significant financial success, but their fortunes are not so secure that they can afford to stop working. As their wealth has grown, so have both the cost of maintaining their lifestyles and their need for products and services that make their lives run smoothly. Now, through the influence of their affluence, this group is helping to bring about momentous changes throughout American society. Our own exhaustive research in this field shows the degree to which the working rich are different from the broader middle class. They are uniquely achievement-oriented. They tend to be high-earning and big-spending. Through their lifestyle choices and spending decisions, they wield influence in the overall economy in support of the same middle-class values and concerns they were raised with: security, health, self-betterment, family, and community. They have achieved the American dream, the American way. By some estimates, the number of millionaire families in America will increase by about half again over the next decade. The middle-class millionaire explores how this burgeoning population is shaping our own attitudes while using its expanding wealth to influence spending and lifestyle choices throughout our economy and society. How will its growing influence affect the values we advance, the products we buy, the ways we live, and the communities we live in? How, in the coming decade, will this market grow as goods and services for the few are transformed into scalable enterprises and services, such as Pinnacle Care, that promise to transform industries and change all of our lives? Will these trends widen the gap between the haves and the have-nots in our society? Or will they, as some predict, lead to improvements that find their way throughout the middle class and American society as a whole? The growth of Pinnacle Care's member base is a clear example of the middle-class millionaire effect in action. The firm has no advertising budget. Its number one source of new subscribers is referrals from existing members. It is a company whose success relies on its clients talking about their experiences. To be sure, only a certain type of Pinnacle Care member contributes to the company's pool of prospects. Pinnacle Care's executives assume that members with the highest net worth are least likely to tell friends about the company. To these people, health care arrangements are personal matters to be dealt with privately and with discretion. In fact, certain Pinnacle Care members put such a high premium on privacy that they have asked the firm to arrange medical procedures far from home, in out-of-town hospitals, where no one is likely to recognize them. But then there's Richard Rossi. As the co-founder of an education firm in suburban Washington, D.C., the 52-year-old Rossi fits our definition of the middle-class millionaire in just about every respect. Rossi likes Pinnacle Care because it satisfies his desire to surround himself with what he calls his 360-degree circle of support: lawyers, financial advisors, personal trainers, home help, and now Pinnacle Care. I've kind of gotten to the point in my life where I'm pretty clear how I want to spend my time, with my family, my friends, my business, and with my own evolution as a person, he says. I've really figured out I don't want to spend my time worrying about anything else, to the degree I can avoid it. And that's what my circle of support is for. And Rossi is happy to spread the wealth. He has single-handedly recruited more new Pinnacle Care members than anyone else. I tend to promote things I believe in, just because of my personality, he says. It's a genuine desire to help people. If something has helped me or benefited me, I want others that I care about to be aware of it. He calls friends to tell them about Pinnacle Care, and after he hangs up, he sends their contact information to John Hutchins for follow-up. Rossi says he is shy by nature, except when it comes to letting friends and colleagues know what Pinnacle Care has done for him. This is why, for instance, everyone who knows John Rossi also knows about his colonoscopy. In preparing for what has become a middle-aged rite of passage, Rossi says he reviewed his options with his Pinnacle Care advocate and grew attracted to the idea of undergoing a virtual colonoscopy. By using a combination of X-rays and computer imaging, a virtual colonoscopy is safer and less invasive than the conventional procedure. The sole drawback is that if a virtual colonoscopy shows any abnormalities, the patient must return weeks later for a traditional colonoscopy. For most people, that means enduring the necessary 24-hour fasting and cleansing process all over again. I said, "This is ridiculous," Rossi recalls. "I'm going to cleanse just once." He asked Pinnacle Care to set up a virtual colonoscopy for him in the morning, and then to make an appointment for a conventional one later that day, just in case he needed it. As it turned out, his virtual scan at Johns Hopkins went well, and there was no need for the second session. Pinnacle Care canceled his afternoon colonoscopy at a cost to Rossi of $300. But it was worth it, he says now. That's how you can bend the medical system to your will, if you have people to do the heavy lifting for you. Rossi's point reflects an important middle-class millionaire attitude, that most problems can be solved with a mix of creative thinking, the right people, and an open wallet. It's an approach to life that they use in business, but it's also a testament to the influence they wield as consumers. In the first few chapters of this audiobook, we will describe the results from our survey of 3,714 households and explain how the distinct set of personality traits among middle-class millionaires — hard work, networking, financial savvy, and persistence — contributes to something we call millionaire intelligence. We will show how the spending habits of middle-class millionaires are watched and imitated by others around them, which in turn prompts still more products and services with the middle-class millionaire in mind, a process we've described as the influence of affluence. The later chapters look at the particular ways in which millionaire intelligence and the influence of affluence converge to create what may be the world's most influential group of mass consumers. We'll explore how the values-driven spending habits of middle-class millionaires are responsible for new and expanding modes of service, ownership, and community. Whether the concern is consumer-driven healthcare, professional coaching, personal security, or ways to enhance their children's education, we will show how the common thread of middle-class values helps to shape and influence them all. Before we could begin our survey research, we needed to define middle class, a notoriously difficult thing to do. We started out by classifying middle-class millionaire households as those with a net worth that fell between $1 million and $10 million, including the equity they maintain in their primary residence, and where the head of household's wealth was self-made, as opposed to inherited or acquired through divorce or other settlement. Then we decided that our sample population of middle-class respondents would be confined to heads of households with annual household incomes between $50,000 and $80,000 per year, and with a net worth under $1 million. This income range is on the high end of the statistical middle in American household income. According to the latest census estimate, just 21% of U.S. households earn more than $80,000, while most households, 55%, have earnings below $50,000. As we would later discover, almost 80% of the survey respondents in the $50,000 to $80,000 income range consider themselves middle class, while 20% regard their social status as upper middle class. Of course, $80,000 in one region of the country, such as the Midwest, can go a lot further than $80,000 in high-cost, high-tax states, such as California or New York. Our staff of professional researchers surveyed 586 middle-class millionaire households and 3,128 households in the middle-class $50,000 to $80,000 income range. All survey respondents were randomly contacted by phone, adhering to the most rigorous standards of social science research. The survey itself was designed with 98 questions about a wide variety of attitudes, assessments, and behaviors related to working life, personal values, community life, and certain areas of consumer spending. With a few very limited exceptions, we did not ask our survey respondents about what might be called luxury spending. This book is not about conspicuous consumption or high-tech bling. Luxury trends and similar cultural ephemera are interesting for other reasons, but they are not central to our discussion. Instead, we focus on the kinds of consumer choices that are informed and driven by common middle-class values. We believe these are the purchasing choices and behaviors that hold the greatest potential for influencing and transforming American society. Take, for example, the growing acceptance over the past decade of OnStar, the automotive tracking and communication system offered by General Motors. Developed initially in the mid-1990s by a team at IBM, OnStar combines cell phone and GPS, global positioning satellite, technologies to provide drivers with 24-hour access to any number of services, including roadside assistance and emergency calls for help, by simply pressing a button on the car's ceiling console. Over the years, GM has gradually expanded the range of services available through OnStar, and today the device can be used to make hotel reservations, receive turn-by-turn road directions, and even monitor tire pressure. Every month, 52.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?